Andrew Bridgen has been expelled from the Tory party. The move comes after Bridgen, well known for his anti-COVID vaccine views, posted this on social media in January. As one consultant cardiologist said to me, this is the biggest crime against humanity since the Holocaust. He was talking, of course, about COVID-19 vaccinations. Now, after that tweet, the party suspended Bridgen, but that didn't stop him from fervently campaigning against the vaccine in Parliament, including posting the details of a 14-year-old girl's post-mortem on social media. This led to a rebuke from the leader of the House, Penny Mordaunt.
What other colleagues are not doing is promoting false propaganda, which is widely known to originate from the Kremlin, abusing and undermining colleagues and the occupant of the chair, and using the autopsy of a 14-year-old girl as clickbait on their social media feed, all of which the honourable member has done in the past week. And he might like to reflect on that.
Fighting a conspiracy theory with a conspiracy theory there, with anti-vax propaganda originating from the Kremlin, apparently. Now, despite no longer being a member of the Tory party, Bridgen is radicalised, riled up and unrepentant.
Do you regret saying it now in the cold light of day, given that you've been expelled?
It's deeply upsetting to be expelled from a party I've served for several decades and campaigned hard for. But I barely recognise the Conservative Party at the moment. We seem to have moved away from being a party that legislates for the people to a party that legislates against the people. Surely I've got the right to free speech to express the genuine and legitimate concerns of my constituents about the safety and efficacy of experimental vaccines, which were never tested properly. We know there's considerable vaccine harms. They're starting to emerge now. And Patrick, before I spoke out in December, and what urged me to do so was when the government were looking at approving the experimental vaccines for children down to the age of 6 months, to babies. As a result of those speeches I gave in Parliament, the government position has moved in a few months from wanting to vaccinate babies of 6 months. That never happened. Then they moved the position to only over 50s and the immunocompromised in January, for February the 12th. I gave another speech on the 17th of March pointing out how the boosters were the lack of efficacy and the cost of them and the dangers of them. And then it's moved to over 75s, a completely different position that the government were adopting. And I put it to you, there was no one else speaking out. And if that's cost me my political career, then so be it, quite honestly, Patrick, because if I've saved the life or one child from being injured, that's worth it, isn't it?
I've just been dealing with, I write a Vogue advice column, as you know. I've been just answering a letter to someone whose parents, who were middle-class professionals during the pandemic lockdowns, have completely fallen prey to conspiracy theories to a point where it's destroyed their family life. This is quite a serious social phenomenon. And I think we should all take it as a cue, the fact that someone in, visible political life can really fall down the rabbit hole as a sign of the danger of this stuff, that it isn't just a few cranks online, that it can actually really take hold. And if we don't have robust systems for challenging misinformation in political life, then unfortunately conspiracy theories will take hold. You just pointed out that Penny Mordaunt came back with something that itself seemed to belong to the realm of conspiracy theory, or certainly wasn't robust, evidence-based argument about the influence of the Kremlin. And I think we really have to take seriously the levels of disinformation and the fact that actually politicians often use and tap into these quite wild conspiracy theories. I'm a trans woman in the UK. I can tell you right now that there are some bizarre online conspiracy theories fueling the gender critical movement that our government is tapping right into. The same is true around migrants, and the same is true around public health care and specifically vaccines. We need to start seeing disinformation and outright lies as somewhat more of a kind of political health issue.
So I can never stop thinking when we talk about disinformation about some raft of studies I read during the pandemic, actually, interestingly, which talked about how when democracy is weaker, people get more disenfranchised the more they turn to alternative explanations. And it's interesting that it seems like our own MPs engaging in that system are so maybe even unconsciously aware of the rot at the centre of it and the pseudo nature of the democracy we live in and they participate in, that they also start buying into and say, oh, there's something else going on there. I'm also thinking about sort of transphobia conspiracy theories that take root at the top of politics nowadays. You've got people pushing ideas that are completely not evidence-based at all in order to target minority groups. And some of them are really, really committed to those ideas. Some of them, I think, are using it more opportunistically, say like Rishi Sunak. But some people within Parliament really seem committed to the absolute falsehoods that they're blasting out.